Today we're going to be replacing these buttons on my Mercedes C350. You can see how they've bubbled up and chipped off, and they just look bad. Now you can get stickers. You can see the door over there too. You can get stickers for these, but don't use those stick-on stickers. Uh, you can actually get the buttons for, I think I paid $40 for these at Amazon or something like that. All of them is less than $40. It's probably more like $30. I can't remember. But the first thing you got to do is you got to get your steering wheel airbag off, and there's two holes on each side of your steering wheel, and you need to poke a screwdriver in there and push on it, and it releases a clip and pops that off for you. And here I'm just trying to push up in there. I've got like a little tool here that I'm pushing up in there, and it didn't work as well. I got one side off with it, but I went and got a screwdriver and used on the other side, and it worked better than that. You need it. I'm not quite sure what it pushes on in there, but that pointed thing would not set on it properly, and it ended up working, but it worked better by using a regular screwdriver, and so I think I got a regular screwdriver, and it ended up coming off there fairly easy with that regular screwdriver. But I'm just pushing up in there right now, trying to, if you hit the right spot, it just releases and clips off one side, then you push over to the other side and do the same thing. Here I'm just going to point out again where those holes are. It looks like my shadow's in the way on this side, but if you look over there, you'll see them. It's not hardly noticeable on one side. Looks like somebody has taken mine off before on that one side, and it was more noticeable than the other. But once you put it in there and clip, this thing just comes out. And make sure you disconnect your battery before you do this. And then there's one clip right there, and you have to clip it on both ends. It pushes towards the ends. It pushes towards the middle of the clip, not the outside of the clip. Just grab on each corner and push in, and it should slide right out of there. It's a little hard to get a hold of. I think I had to use a tool here, if I remember right. I used a little tool and put on one side, then just clip the other side with my fingernail, and it pops right out of there. And you can see it just comes out, and it's just a clip, and it just clips right back in there when you get ready to put it back together, and it snaps back. And once you get it out, there's three torque screws. There's one underneath there. There's two. There's actually four. There's two. There's one on each of those bars. I'm pointing at it there, and there's the other one. And then there's two at the top that I already pointed to. And I believe they were T25. I can't remember now. But they're definitely Torx. I believe it's a T20 or T25 Torx. And you screw those off, and then that bezel will come off, and that'll get you access to all of the buttons. But I'm just taking them out one at a time. There's two on the top here. I'm trying to hold the phone, hold my camera, and do the screwdriver at the same time. But this is pretty simple to get to. You just take out the two top ones, and then there's one on each side underneath that I already pointed out. And rather than try to crawl down there and look, I just felt with my fingers and poked it in there and got it out. So that way you could just continue to sit in your seat. You don't have to really crawl around on the floorboard or anything. Just use your other finger, and kind of line it up. And that worked for me anyway. And once you get all your screws out, it should just pop off. And I think there's another. You got to disconnect the wires for each of your button clusters. And again, they just snap in there. Fairly simple to snap in and out. But just snap each one of those out. They're not easy to get to because there's not a lot of space back there, but it's not super difficult, but it's not like you can just reach back there and clip them. You gotta work to get your hand in there and your fingers in there right. I think I ended up using the tool just to push on the little clip release and then snapped it off, and you can see I've got it off there. Once you get it off, sit down at a table, or I just set it up on top of the car and stood there and didn't mind. And you got to take 3 more torque screws off. And again, I cannot remember the size of them. I want to say they were the same size as whatever I used to get the other tool off with. They were the exact same size, I'm fairly certain. But you'll have to verify that on your own, but it shouldn't be too difficult to do. You would take those 3. There's 3 on each side. And once you get those 3 out, the whole little cluster will pop out of your. There's still some snaps on there, it seems like, and you have to snap them to still get it out. Even though the screws are out, there's some little clips right there. And you have to release those clips as well. And here I'm just unclipping them on each side. There's a little, you see, I just take that little hook tool, pull out that clip and push up. And there's one on the other side as well. You have to unclip them both. And then the whole cluster comes out. And then just do the other side the same way. Now we got them both out of there. And you can see you got 2 little clusters, one from each side of your steering wheel. And you can't just pop those off. I tried that. Maybe it's possible, there's some way to do it. But I found it easier to take these apart. And then I still had trouble at first. Once I figured it out, it was not that hard to do. But it does take a little bit of time to figure it out. But instead of trying to just pop those caps off, I suggest that you flip it back over and it takes a different torque, a smaller torque screw, and then take those torque screws out. Here I've got my new buttons. They come in a little bag. I just put one side away and figure out which side you're going to start on. I think they're all laying there, so I have to kind of figure out which side is which. And they only go on there one way, so it's really difficult. You just need to make sure you get the right side versus the left side. So I'd make sure I had the buttons for the right one, and then put it aside. And you can see me here. At first I start trying to pop these buttons out, but that doesn't work, so I'm going to skip through this and show you exactly how I did it. Okay, you can see me here. What I'm doing is there's 3 more torque screws on the bottom side. Maybe there's 4 of them. There might be 4. There's 3 or 4. But take those torque screws out, and the bottom will come loose. And then it's easier to pop those out. It'll take you a minute to figure it out, and it's really, I don't even know how to describe it. You can watch me here. Actually, there might be 5 of those torque screws. I know there's at least 4 now, maybe 5. But we'll get it off here, and then I'll show you. Hopefully I can describe it to you. But once you figure it out, the rest of them will go easy. This first button is going to take you a few minutes to figure out how to pop it out of there. And you want to be gentle with it, because you don't want to break anything, because if you broke any of these parts, you'd have to buy the whole little cluster, and you might have to go to Mercedes to get it. But just pull that little board and bottom off, and now you can see. And there's a little clip there on those things are just clipped in. You can see there's a clip on each side, and I can't remember if I pushed them in. I think you push them in, and you push in on each side. And I say I'm using a tool on each side, and you push in on each side. Then you push in on that middle part, and it'll pop right out. And it's that simple, really. And once you do one, the others come out. Some of them come out easier than the others, but again, there's two clips, and you pop those two clips. You push those two clips in. Let me go back here, and we'll go through that. I'll show you those clips one more time. Maybe when I flip it over, I'll show you one more time. Then just put your little centerpiece back in there, and then when your new button goes in, it'll clip it. It just clips right in. That simple. And there's one button replaced, and you can see those two clips. There's I don't know how to, you see me, I'm pushing on each clip, and you push them towards the inside, and once you push them up in, then you just push down at the same time, and it pops out. And there comes the next one. And you just do that with each one, and they snap right back in. And just match your button, pop it back in there, and you should be good to go. Put your little plastic centerpiece back in there first, and then just snap your button in. It's that simple. And once you've like I said, once you've done one, the others are much easier to do. The first one, it took me a kind of a minute to figure out. I didn't know if you pushed the clips out or you pushed them in. I think I was trying to push them out. It may, usually you would push out on your clips. I think, and in this case, I know you push in. I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to push too hard and break something, so I wasn't sure which way to push them. But you do push towards at the end of each button, you push towards the center of the button on those clips. And you can see how easy it's going now, and you just go through all your buttons just like that. Now we'll move on to the little silver button. See the indentation just on the side of the silver button. Watch for it when I turn it. Right there, that little piece that sticks out on the actual silver button itself, not the back there, but on the side. You only got a quick glimpse of it. I think I'll show it again here when I flip it over. Not that side, but I believe it's the other side. I believe I put my little hook tool under that indentation right there and pulled out and pulled up at the same time, and I think it popped off. This one was a little more challenging than the others. The others are really simple, but you can see I got one of them off there. Maybe it was on that hole. Maybe it's where that hole is, and not on the side where the indentation is. Yep, I believe I have it backwards. So the side where the hole is, pull out, because I think the little clip goes in that hole and keeps it on there. And you see that one kind of sits at the top up there and just snaps in there. It just kind of works. It just kind of it almost twisted in. A little twisting action, and it twists right in there. And you can see once you got it on, now we're ready to go. That whole cluster is finished. We'll put the board back on and the PC board, and then your cover, and then put your screws back in, and that side is finished up and ready to go. Now we'll just put it all back together. We'll speed this up a little bit. No sense in you watching me screw screws, and put it back in the bracket there and screw it back into that. Here again, I'm trying the other little silver button. They're a little more challenging than the others were. The others were, it took me a minute to figure out how to get them out, but once I did, they were easy. These, I never really, they were still difficult to get out without, I was just so afraid I'd break something. And you got to be real gentle with this thing because you don't want to break any of it. I tell you, I wish now that that steering wheel bracket, the metal bracket that I'm screwing everything back into, I wish I would have changed that out. You can buy them on Amazon. I read the reviews and they're a little cheap in plastic and they say they break real easy. But what I'll probably do with mine is I'll take it back off since it's real easy to take that off and take the clusters off. And I'll probably wrap that in carbon fiber or something like that, or something that looks nice, and put it back on there, because it does start to chip a little bit and you get these little rough spots on it. Here I'm just cleaning it up a little bit just so I don't have fingerprints all over it when I put it back in from where I've been working on it here. But yeah, at some point I'm going to take that off and maybe I'll record that and show you how I do it, show you before and after at the very least. And but if yours is scratched up, I would highly recommend going ahead and doing it while you got it apart. I wish I had them now. Like I said, I'll probably order me some carbon fiber. Um, I forget what they call the stuff. My mind went blank. But you can buy some carbon fiber and a wrap and just wrap it, and it looks, and you kind of use a uh, blow dryer and heat shrink it. It shrinks around it and wraps around it real tight and looks professional. Almost, it looks like real carbon fiber. I've done that on some of my other car parts in the past, and it looks real good. So I'll probably do that. But here we'll go. We'll go ahead and speed this up again while we put this together, and we'll wrap this one up. And it goes back together the same way. You just put your two clips, clip your two clips back into the button clusters, put your four torque screws in, reconnect your wire to your airbag, clip it back in. It just pushes in there and clips in. And again, make sure you disconnect your battery before you see me reconnecting my battery there. But make sure you disconnect your battery. And you can see how it looks here. I'm going to test all the buttons, crank the car and test them all. And everything's working fine. I didn't have any problems. It feels like original buttons. It looks like the original buttons, except they're fresh and clean and new looking. And it's worth the time if your buttons look like mine did. If you want your car, you drive a nice car and the steering wheel looks like those buttons look like they did. So now I'm going to change out the ones on the door here, and you just pop them off. You see it popped off and rolled across the floor there. I just took that hook tool and popped it off, and that took care of it. And then we just put the new buttons back in. And these were pretty straightforward. I didn't have to do the passenger side because they're not used very often, and they all look new and fresh, and it's just the ones on the driver's side where they get used a lot. And so I just you pop these off. There's a top one and a bottom one, and they just snap back in. And I just took that hook tool again and got it behind it and pried on it till it popped off. Just be gentle with it. Don't break it. I mean, I was a little afraid I'd break it, but I had to give it a little pressure to finally get it to break free. But it broke free and just popped off there. And each time it did it, they fly off out somewhere across the floor. And it seemed like I had a little more trouble with the second one than I did the first one. But you'll get it loose there and snap the two new ones in, and you should be good to go. And here you can see me snap that top one in there. Trying to do it with one hand and hold the camera with the other. Look, I don't know. I hope I'm getting all that in the video. I can't tell where I'm aiming the camera. So, but you can see it snapped in there, and that one looks good. Now we got to get the second one off and do the same thing with it. And you can see the finished product there. They all look fresh and new. I need to do my windows now. I noticed now that the other ones are all looking fresh and new, I can see the windows look a little off. Now they're not near as bad, but they don't look quite finished. So I went ahead and ordered the buttons for the windows as well. I'm pointing that out, showing you those buttons on the window. But there's the finished product on the steering wheel. Turned out really nice. It's worth the time and effort if you like having your car nice and everything nice in it. Um, all the buttons are working properly. They feel like the original buttons. So I highly recommend these. I got these off Amazon. I'll put a link in the video description of the buttons that I used. And I did go ahead and order some for the window too. I'll put that link in there as well. The only thing with the window that I wasn't happy with the window buttons is the white lines are not quite as bright. If you just had to change one button, it would probably be noticeable, but since I changed all 4 window buttons, it's really not that noticeable, and it's not that big a deal to me. But if you're a perfectionist and you like, you probably wouldn't notice it if I didn't point it out to you. That's how it's just not very obvious. So, but if you're a perfectionist and you notice things like that, I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it's just not quite as bright a white lines. And so, but because I changed all 4, to me, it's not even noticeable. I pointed out to somebody, I said, "You see anything different about any of my buttons?" And they didn't see it. So of course I can see it because I know, and they're just not quite as bright a white. But everything else matches perfect. And you see me there, I'm talking about, I wished I would went ahead and changed that out or wrapped it or something because of the edges are rough on it. It probably needs sanded down, those rough edges, before you wrap it with anything. But yeah, it turned out nice. I think it's worth the time and effort if you like your car to look fresh and new. If you're going to drive around a nice car, which I like to have a nice car to drive when I'm going out. I drive my truck when I'm working and when I'm working on things, but when I'm going out, want to go uptown and go out to a dinner or go to, somewhere nice or on a road trip, I like to have a nice vehicle. And so I keep my car clean and I try to keep it nice and in good shape. And so to me, it was worth, if you like to have a fresh, clean car, those buttons are definitely worth changing. So anyway, I highly recommend them, and I'll put the links in the video. Here I'll just give you another quick look at the buttons and show you how they're all working properly. You can see I think I'll show you the dashboard here. Yep. And you can see me going through up and down, side to side. All the buttons working like the original equipment. So the buttons work well. They look good. They feel original equipment, and I just don't think you can go wrong with them. They're reasonably cost, and so yeah, there it is. Everything working as expected. So if you're interested in making your buttons look fresh and new, pick you up some of these buttons. I'm sure there's other places you probably get them on eBay. I got mine on Amazon. Again, I'll put the links in the video for you, and you can take a look at them there. That'll wrap this one up, and thanks for watching.